As far as a couple last thoughts on this 49er game, you know, I think that there's a couple interesting angles to me in this game. One is I think this is the game that Kyle Shanahan needs to play complementary football. He's got to play complementary football. What you do on offense will help Diamador Lenore. What you do on offense will help Tayshaun Gibson and Talanoa Hufanga. We know who Dallas's weapons are, right? I mean, they're going to Gallup, they're going to Schultz, CeeDee Lamb's their number one guy. So, by the way, if we didn't get these 2 super chats before, Larry Radnich, the defense is due. I think next week we're all talking about a spectacular, dominant performance from Fred Warner and company, 28-13 Niners. I thought we read that one. And also this one, Calvin and Hobbs. Keep up the good work. Go Niners. Go Niners. But what I was going to say on this one is the Niners need to play complementary football. And that means dominate the time of possession. The one thing when you look at Dallas and the numbers, they're not a time of possession football team. They typically score fast. So they're not used to possessing the ball for big amounts of time. The Niners also, Shanahan he's got a quick strike offense as well from time to time. And it seems like they, have not had these long drives for the most part. Well, just looking at Dallas against Tampa the other night, didn't they have like a 15-play drive and an 11-play drive, and they won the time of possession? So to me, winning the time of possession is very important, because the Niners' weakness, I think, in this game is the secondary giving up big pass plays, and the Niner, defensive front is going to determine who wins this game by how much pressure they can put on Prescott. And to me, they'll be able to put a lot more pressure on Prescott if they're on the field for a fewer number of downs come fourth quarter, and they've got a lot left in the tank. The Niners are deep up front. They're talented up front. They play a lot of games up front. But any defense will wear down from a big physical Dallas offensive line if Dallas plays ball control. So if I were the Niners, I'd play fast. And if I was D'Amico, I'd be aggressive. And I'd be blitzing from the start and take your chances. Take your chances. Force Dallas to take shots down the field. Make them play fast. Don't allow them to possess the hell out of the football. Don't allow them to run Zeke and Pollard and hold the ball for, a good chunk of the game. Don't do that. Blitz them, stack the line, challenge them, make them challenge you down the field, and see if your guys will stand up. I'd rather do that than lose because Dallas possesses the ball for 40 minutes. Now, Dallas's defensive line is deep and talented and can rush the passer. So maybe you go a run-heavy game plan. But the most important thing is you got to stay ahead of the chains. You cannot get to 3rd and 20, 2nd and 22. So penalties, playing a clean game, penalty-wise, is going to be absolutely pivotal. If you fall behind the sticks against Dallas's defensive front, they're going to pile up sacks. That's what they do. Dallas on the season has 54 sacks. I mean, think about the Niners. They have Nick Bosa. He's the defensive player of the year in football, and they have 10 fewer sacks than the Cowboys do. The Cowboys get after the quarterback. They sack the quarterback. So to me, if the Niners are running the ball and having success running it, Shanahan, stick with it. Do not get impatient. If you're having success, if you're struggling with it, stick with the run and then play, and then make some, play action pass off of it. Let Purdy make some efficient throws, but I would be okay with a 55-45 run pass split. And I might be thrilled with a 60-40 run pass split. The one thing I didn't mention to Grant, but it's clear and it's for everybody to see, the 49ers have a clear preparation advantage in this matchup. They've had 2 extra days of preparation. You could argue that once Minnesota lost on Sunday, the 49ers were right onto their Cowboy prep. Why? Because they had already just played Tampa a couple weeks earlier. They had already prepped for that opponent. So they probably leaned their preparation on Dallas. So they didn't have a 1-day lead. They got probably a day and a half, maybe even a 2-day lead on preparation. Dallas also played that game in Tampa, is flying back to Dallas, and now has to fly to the West Coast, where the 49ers have been holed up in the Pacific time zone for much of the last 2 months. And that's the reality. So I think if there's one advantage, a clear advantage in the situation, it's that the 49ers schedule was very travel light, and they didn't leave the West Coast and have these East Coast jaunts in the second half of the year at all. So they're as rested and ready a team as you're going to find. I also think it's kind of interesting that if you ask the question, who's going to run the ball, who's going to stop the run? Well, Dallas has got some good runners, but the Niners have the number 2 run D. So, I mean, if you look at this on paper, you say, well, Dallas can run it, right? What's Dallas's rushing offense rated? They've got the 9th ranked rushing offense. They average 135 yards per game. The 49ers have the 2nd best rush defense in the NFL. The Niners give up 77 yards rushing per game, number 2 in the NFL. So is Dallas going to have more success rushing at the Niners? Probably not. The Niners, on the other hand, run game is 8th. They average 138 yards per game on the ground. But Dallas's run D is the weakness of their D. And they give up well over 120 yards per game on the ground, and that's 22nd in the NFL. So I would say the 49ers are the team that's more likely to have success running it. If you said, is one team going to run the ball, stop the run over the other? I would say that team that's going to run the ball and stop the run is likely to be the 49ers. So then it really comes down to who's more likely to turn the ball over. And the stat that just is absolutely amazing to me, the 49ers this year, when they are even on the turnover margin at the end of the game, turnover margin means I turn it over twice, you turn it over twice, we're even. You turn it over 3 times, I turn it over twice, I'm +1. I turn it over 3 times, you turn it over twice, you're +1. I'm -1. The 49ers this year, when they were even on the turnover margin or in the plus category, were 14-0. They were 14-0. They were not beaten. When they were on the negative side of the turnover margin this year, 0-4, didn't win. So how important are turnovers? They mean everything. It's about taking care of the football. It's about being efficient, being smart, and taking care of the football. Who's going to run it better? I think it's going to be the Niners. Who's going to stop the run better? I think it's going to be the Niners. And then we get to the turnovers part. Well, fumbles, who knows? You just don't know. Elijah Mitchell never fumbles. I mean, it literally never fumbles. But guess what? Tony Pollard and Zeke Elliott, guess how many fumbles they combined for this year? None. That's right, 0. They don't fumble either. So the Cowboy backs are likely not going to cough it up. So if the turnovers are going to come, they're going to come because of interceptions. Who's more likely to throw interceptions? Dak Prescott, who's got like 10 in his last 7 or 8 games, or Brock Purdy, who's got 4 and 2 of them were tip balls? I would say Prescott. So I think that's advantage 49ers. I think the turnover margin should be advantage 49ers. I think the run game should be advantage 49ers. The key to me in this game is, can the 49er defensive backs play with poise with the ball in the air? Whether that's early in the game, late in the game, whether Dallas is doing that to establish the run later on, or whether they're doing that because they fell behind and they're now going up top because they got to catch up. Play the ball in the air with poise. Now, obviously, Charvarius had a really rough day against DK Metcalf. Maybe he bounces back. Diamador Lenoir's his ball skills have been really good as the season's progressed, but he hasn't consistently played the ball well in the air. And then Gibson and Hufanga sometimes get caught leaning forward, and you can throw over their head and have a big play. How the Niners play the ball in the air and how much poise they show with the ball in the air, I think is going to probably determine who wins this game. But who's going to have success? Is Dallas going to have success passing the ball down the field on the 22nd best run pass D in pro football? Or are the Niners going to have success running at the 22 best or 22nd best run defense in pro football? It's probably where the game gets decided. I like the 49ers to win the game, but because I think Brock Purdy is really playing efficient football, and I think it's going to continue. He's taking care of the football. They're running the ball. They got a great defense. But it's like, how do the Niners settle into this game? Does Shanahan come out throwing it? The one thing with Purdy, he's got the it factor. Now, what is the it factor? To me, it's touch, it's accuracy, it's timing, it's feel. But there's also another factor here, and that is the risk reward factor. How much risk do you take? Are you captain check down, or are you throwing it into triple coverage? And so thus far, I would say Purdy has struck the perfect balance between staying aggressive, keeping his eyes peeled down the field, and being smart with the football. And that kind of balance, that, walking that tightrope of be aggressive, take shots, don't be timid, exploit your mismatches, throw some 50-50 balls up to your top receivers, and then be smart with the football. Don't turn it over. Take care of the ball. These things, they're shades of gray, right? It's not as easy as oh, well, just don't turn it over. Okay. But you gotta take chances down the field. If you say, where's Brock Purdy really playing at a high level? It's that right there. It's the balance between I'm taking shots, I'm being aggressive, I'm going for it, as opposed to I'm being smart, I'm taking care of the football, and I'm living to play another play on the negative play. He's not taking sacks. He's not, he's finding a way to escape outside the tackle box and throw that ball out of bounds and go to the next play. And it's something that if Garoppolo had learned earlier in his career, probably would be a whole lot better off for his trouble. G-Code Travels Vlog POV donates, says Purdy is turning into babyface assassin, Golden State Warriors Steph Curry and the Giants Buster Posey, changing the face of a franchise to become a leader. Purdy is a most win Super Bowl, a must win Super Bowl. I'm not really sure what G-Code Travels was getting at there, but I do see what you're saying, though, as far as Purdy, Posey, and Curry. They do all have that baby face, but they all are just insanely competitive. I mean, that's the thing when you're around Brock that really stands out to you, is that this guy's he's insanely competitive. He's got it all in perspective. I asked him today, how have the last 6 or 7 weeks been like for you? And how have you been able to stay grounded? And he said, I'm a man of faith, and my faith's important to me, and it keeps me grounded. And I've got a loving family, and I've got a life outside of football. And it humbles me, or whatever. I forget exactly how he phrased it, but he was like, keeps me from, getting too up or too down, and kind of evens him out. So very interesting guy. And the 49ers have to be consider themselves absolutely incredibly lucky that they stumbled on this guy. And once again, shout out to John Lynch. You know how many GMs would just say, yeah, I drafted that guy. Yeah, I did. Who drafted him? Who liked him? I did. I'm the GM. It's my draft record. He was in my draft. I drafted him. You know what I mean? And they would just kind of elbow everybody else out of the picture. John Lynch is like, yeah, the road scout's name is Slowick, and he told the whole story about how he found him and how they kind of, what they said about him, what they liked about him. I mean, he went into the whole detail. It was really, really good. Go to 957thegame.com and you can check out the interview that he did on the game where he talked about it. But just a really interesting draft choice for the Niners, because they didn't even have a first round pick in this draft. And, they started the draft with Drake Jackson, and look what it ended with. I mean, Brock Purdy and a whole slew of undrafted players that I think are going to make an impact going forward in the years ahead. 3 years from now, when you look back at the 2022 NFL draft and what the Niners got out of it before and after the draft, I think you're going to be amazed, because I expect all these backup players. The Marcelino McCrary Ball, he's a baller. He's a player. He's going to be a player. The backup offensive lineman, Nick Zakel, he's a player. He's going to be a really good player. Danny Gray's a really good player. Quantrez Knight's a really good player. I mean, seriously, these guys can play. Jason Poe, Tay Martin, these guys are going to play in the NFL. I mean, they're going to play in the NFL, and they're going to play a number of years in the NFL. So this draft, Kalia Davis, another guy, he's going to play it. He's going to play in the NFL. He's going to be a good interior pass rusher. So John Lynch and his staff did an amazing job in this 22 draft haul before and after the draft. And Purdy's just the tip of the iceberg. And people are probably not even going to notice that. Even if the Niners went to the Super Bowl this year, people probably would not notice that because so many of these guys are kind of developmental still, and they didn't make a huge impact outside of Spencer Burford, who started, and Brock Purdy, who's now starting. The Jordan Masons and TDP, Drake Jackson, Sammy Womack. These guys are all good players, and they're going to be here in the league for a long time, but nobody really knows it yet. And they clearly don't know any of those practice squad guys. So nobody's going to be talking about this epic draft from John Lynch, except for yours truly. But 3 years from now, come back, check back, and let's see what that draft looks like. It's going to be incredible looking back at it. And Purdy's obviously the key guy there. So we got this one from Niner Gang Wolfcast. His Krueg, did you see Rand Carthon's reception at the Titans facility? I did not. But congratulations to Rand Carthon, whose father is Maurice Carthon, played for the New York Giants, and he's obviously been a good front office guy for the 49ers, and now he's running the show in Tennessee. And what does that mean as far as Trey Lance? I'll say this. If I'm Tennessee, I'd rather have Trey Lance than Malik Willis. I'd rather have Trey Lance than Ryan Tannehill. So if I'm the 49ers, I think if Brock Purdy wins another playoff game, it might be time to discuss what the Niners may do trade-wise in the offseason with Trey Lance. Now, if they bring Trey Lance back, he counts $9 million against the cap. If they trade Trey Lance, he turns into a $20 million cap hit. So I don't know if they're going to wind up trading him this year, but if I'm Trey, I want to play, man. I need to play. If I'm his agent, I'm thinking, hey, guys, Trey needs to play. I think everybody would agree. Trey Lance needs to play football. So if Brock Purdy's the starter and he's 23, maybe Trey comes to the Niners and says, I want to be elsewhere. I don't know. I'm not sure how that's going to go, but it would make all the sense in the world. I'll say this. If it was my kid, I wouldn't want to beg out of the situation. I'd want to sit there and say, hey, fight it out and see if you can get the job. And if not, then not. And we'll move on from there. But, man, if Brock Purdy goes on and leads the Niners to the Super Bowl, he's 23 years old. And I know, and it's not only about, well, what's best for the Niners. We know it's best for the Niners to have Trey Lance and Brock Purdy. Yeah, it's best for the Niners. But what's best for Trey? And what if Trey demands a trade? Do you trade him? Yeah, that's the debate. And I can imagine Tennessee would want him. I could imagine Detroit would want him. I could imagine that Indianapolis, who gave him a blue star designation in the draft coming out, that that they could want him. So, Trey Lance, I think, is really an attractive quarterback prospect. Still. And I know people are like, well, he kind of struggled and this, but the word's out. See, it's a small league and people talk and everybody knows. They know if you're a scumbag. They know if you're a great guy. They know if you work hard. They know if you're a slacker. And there's guys who get paid 6-figure salaries to know these things. And if they go and they research Trey, they're going to find out that he's incredibly athletic. He's incredibly diligent. He's incredibly hardworking. He wants it badly. And he wants to be a superstar NFL quarterback. Now, is he there yet? No, but that's his makeup as a person. That's why it's one of the main reasons the Niners liked him is he's got this incredible makeup and he's incredibly athletic. And they went on traits. Now, they found a player in Purdy who is doing it. And it's not about like traits and development. He knows how to play the position. He's playing at a really high level. So what do you do? What do you do? And if I'm John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, I talk to Trey and Trey's family, and just say, because he's got a right to have a say in his future. You've invested a lot in the kid. He's been, come on, you've invested a lot in him. This is a unique situation. I think you can have a conversation with the family and just say, what do you guys want? You want to stick here in a great organization with one of the NFL's best play callers with a great cachet of weapons and the number one defense in the league, or and maybe lose out to Brock Purdy and have to play off the bench at the beginning of your playing career? Or do you want to be elsewhere in Tennessee as the anointed starter where the team's built around you, so on and so forth? So, and then whatever he says, I think I would do if I'm the Niners. If he says, hey, I want to be here, guess what? Great. You're young. Brock's young. Got two young quarterbacks. It's friendly on the cap. Work hard. He learns from you. You learn from him. You both learn from Greasy. Everybody learns from Shanahan. You enjoy this thing going forward, and you play it as it comes. Great. Or he may say, you know what? Brock's the guy here. Come on. Let's be real. He's the guy. The fans love him. The team loves him. He's playing at a high level. He's the guy, and he's going to be the guy. And I just, all things being equal, love you, John. Love you, Kyle. Put me in Tennessee. Send me to Nashville. Trade me to Minnesota. Maybe he'll replace Kirk Cousins. I don't know. I guarantee you this, though. There's going to be a bunch of teams interested in Trey Lance. And if people think, oh, my God, they're not going to. Trey Lance, showed this year that he couldn't play. No, he didn't. He showed that he still needs development. And I don't think you're going to get 3 number ones. But if you're talking about a mid-first or a late first, I do think there'll be multiple teams that will be willing to give you a mid to late first round draft choice for Trey Lance. This is interesting. SLLL says Trey Lance equals James Wiseman. Yeah, but here's the one difference. Trey Lance, as sure as I'm sitting here, I know he loves to play and lives to play. And that's what he is. He's nothing else. He is this. He's a football player. He wants to be a quarterback. He is all in on being a quarterback. I get the feeling sometimes with James Wiseman that he has, maybe eclectic interests, and that he, maybe the fire doesn't burn for him to be this great player, that he's gifted, but does he really have that burning desire to be this awesome center? If he does, maybe he does. I haven't seen it. Jay Tan says, shout out to Steve Slowick, the scout who was in love with Brock Purdy. Yeah, exactly. You know what? Forget shout out. How about just a little clapping for Steve Slowick? Because that guy has our respect. And let's be honest, if the 49ers didn't have Brock Purdy, this season would be down the tubes and we'd be talking about injuries and next year. Instead, they do have Brock Purdy, and they're 2 wins away from the Super Bowl and 3 wins away from their 6th Lombardi. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see where this whole thing goes. I will say this too. There's something about Dallas that is really enjoyable to beat Dallas. You know what I mean? I think the idea of beating Dallas is always there's something that makes that a little bit more exciting this weekend, just because of Jimmy Johnson, Jerry Jones, the whole rivalry. And everybody's got their own view on the rivalry. To me, I will still put Niners Cowboys over Niners Seahawks, over Niners Rams. I just think that what the Niners and the Cowboys did in the 80s and 90s, I don't know. To me, that's the best. That's the number one rivalry as far as I'm concerned. It's the Dallas Cowboys. And it will be extra sweet to beat Dallas. One last thing on the injury front, there were 2 49ers on the injury list of note, Samson Ebukam and Jawan Jennings. Jennings is just trying to get, I think it's his foot, trying to get it right. Ebukam was in the locker room today. They're both, question marks for Sunday. And they're both really important. Jawan Jennings, I think, is a vital third receiver for the 49ers. He's a big target. He's a chain mover. He's a dependable guy. He's a money receiver. And Ebukam might be their most underrated defensive lineman. He just has a crazy motor. He's freaky strong, very first step fast, has played with a number of painful injuries all year. So if Ebukam can't get out there, they're fortified. They got Charles Omenihu. They got Jordan Willis. They got Drake Jackson, who was inactive last week, who could easily step in. They got Kerry Hyder. They got other guys. It's not like they're going to be naked without Samson Ebukam. But man, if they could have Ebukam in there, he is a difference-making player of the highest order. I mean, he is fast. He's athletic. Really good football player. All right, that's going to do it for this live stream. Thanks to Grant. Thanks to all of you. Until next time. Oh, by the way, if you're one of the over 300 people in the chat right now, we are building the channel, and we're at, I think, over 11,000 now. We just got to 10,000 the other day. Now we are, last count was 11,381. 11,381. So if you're in the chat and you're one of the 309 people in here, and maybe you're a subscriber to Grant's channel and you haven't subscribed yet to the Krueg Show, if you could, I would appreciate it. It would be awesome. We produce regular content, and we're going to, later on tonight, we'll have a live stream, talk a little Warriors, talk a little Niners. We'll have Dan and Rye joining us, and we'll play some Niner interviews from today. It's all coming up, but thanks to everybody for joining us today on the live stream, and we'll see you next time on the Krueg Show.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get exactly what you asked for.